Great. Well, thank you all for being here this afternoon with me. I know this is the last session of the day, so I'll try to be fairly brief, but also try to make this into a conversation. Since we have such a small group, it'll be great. Come on in if you're interested in procurement and working with startups. So I'll share a little bit about the work we're doing in San Francisco, as well as other Bay Area cities that we're partnering with on making some innovative changes to procurement, but I would say more importantly, culture change, and really a shift of mindset of how we can make more impact in innovative ways through partnerships. So let me start off with a little background. Again, my name is Nath. I'm the Mayor's Chief Innovation Officer for the City of San Francisco. It was a role that was created in January 2012 when he first got elected into office, and the first mayor's office to create a role like this in the country. We've seen a real growth of this type of role throughout mayor's offices and different government agencies, both at the local and state and federal level. So it's been great to be part of this movement, and a lot of our focus is around technology, but it's broader than that as well. We often are focused on economic development in some cities and different regions and different agencies. Sometimes it's around government effectiveness and operations and trying to make government more streamlined. So it takes on a wide variety of roles. My focus and my office's focus, the Mayor's Office of Civic Innovation, is really around supporting our departments and agencies. And we have 60 departments and agencies in San Francisco. We have 30,000 staff for a city of, I don't know, close to 900,000 people. So a lot of government staff. We are a city and a county, so we manage an airport to a zoo. We've got a lot of human services and social services that we provide as well. So just want to give you a little of context and backdrop about the city of San Francisco, and shout out to you as well for being here in Sacramento from the PUC. So let me talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing around making our government more innovative. I'm a small office. We've got 5 people. It started with 1, and it's now 5, and it's never going to get much larger. And when you think about the organization of 30,000 people, how do you make impact when you have such a small group? And so we really have been leaning on partnerships, working with our partners externally as well as internally on bringing in new ideas, new approaches, new frameworks, and most importantly, capacity. We all know this. We don't have enough resources in government to do all the things that we want to do. And so this has been a great way for us to be able to build that bridge with other sectors to bring in their different perspective. So with that in mind, we launched something called Startup in Residence in 2014. And it's a really simple idea. When you think about all of the transformation that's happened in so many other industries, they've been driven by the startup world. And yet here in government, we really haven't had the opportunity to work with many startups for a number of reasons. Procurement being one of them, but there's also a big reason that we thought about, sorry about that, is around the problems that we face and entrepreneurs not knowing them, right? And so our goal was to really share the needs that we have in government so that entrepreneurs could build solutions based on those needs. And we had no idea if this was going to work or not in 2014, so we shared a number of needs that we had, and we had a tremendous response back in 2014. We had over 200 startups apply for the program, and it was from 25 cities and countries, totally a global response, wanting to work with our departments and agencies around specific issues that they put forward. And here's a great example of that. Our airport, which I think sees over 50 million passengers and travelers a year, they shared with us a need to help visually impaired and blind travelers navigate the airport better. Today it's a very difficult, challenging process for all of us who are sighted and who have all of our senses with us, but you can imagine the challenges of trying to navigate through security, go to the gate, grab coffee, charge your phone, all of those things that we take for granted, how challenging that is. And so we put that challenge out there to the global entrepreneurial community, and a company from, Vienna, Austria, applied to the program amongst a few others, and they were the best fit. So they interviewed them just like an RFP. They sort of went through that process of selecting them. The department was fully in control to say, hey, this is a good fit or not a good fit. The other thing to note, and I didn't share, is that this is a pro bono effort. There's no exchange of money. This is really volunteers, both from the government side, saying, hey, we want to work with startups to try to create a solution and for startups to donate their time and energy as well. And it's over 16 weeks. So over 16 weeks, they dove deeply into this problem about how do we help visually impaired travelers. And so they brought in a nonprofit in San Francisco called Lighthouse for the Blind that works with the blind community to really reflect their perspective and their needs and to deeply understand that. And so over 16 weeks, they built an amazing solution from scratch. Nothing existed. And it was just as innovative, I think, on the government's part as well. The staff at SFO were amazing. They helped procure, I think, 500 iBeacons, so these little sensors. Union staff deployed them all through Terminal 2. So if you are ever flying out of Terminal 2, which I think was Virgin, is now Alaska Airlines and another airline, I'm forgetting the other one, you'll see these little dots on the walls. They're camouflage, but you can, if you look closely, you'll see them. And they deployed that, and we also shared the most detailed map of any airport in the world down to where our outlets are in 3D. And so combining all of that, the sort of the sensors plus the communications network, all of that, they were able to create a great solution. So it was amazing to see this woman who is an executive at the Lighthouse for the Blind. She travels a lot for her job. And she shared how frustrating that is. Always having to rely on other people, right? And some people find it awkward. It's varying responses. And for the first time in her life, she was able to navigate the airport by herself with a gaggle of press folks behind her, where she had her iPhone telling her that in 300 feet at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, there's a cafe, that the security line is 12 o'clock, that it's 1,000 feet in front of her. And she was able to navigate through the airport to get to her gate. And so we're really excited about that. And that was done in just 16 weeks, pro bono. Now what happened after that? Took 2 years for our airport to issue an RFP. And thankfully that startup is still around. And I believe that they're somehow involved in the commercial arrangement now. It was a much bigger project. Now it's airport-wide. And it was also looking for a lot more things. So the airport learned a lot. They learned that they want this, but they also want more functionality, more features, and other things that they need to do for the airlines, for the concessionaires, and for others in their sort of stakeholders. But to me and for us, that was a real sort of wake-up call. We knew, and all of us know, that procurement is difficult and challenging. We didn't want to tackle procurement at the same time as building a brand new sort of program. And I think that was the right move. But we knew that we quickly had to start focusing on procurement. So I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. So that was 2014. In 2015, we applied for a federal grant from the Department of Commerce called an I-6 Regional Innovation Grant. We were fortunate enough to have secured that grant, one of a few. I think the only government agency that was able to secure that. Most of them were academia. And our pitch was to the federal government, look, we've proven that there's some really interesting value of pairing startups with government agencies and building new solutions collaboratively. But we really want to change the broader market, the whole ecosystem. There's thousands of problems and needs that we have that are not being met by the private market. And so we said, we'll take a regional approach. We'll go try to get as many city and state agencies on board as well. And so these cities came on board in 2015 to join us. And so in 2016, we launched and had some really great partnerships. I'm going to share a couple with you. One is with our Human Services Agency, and they work with people who are low income and other challenges in our community. This specific need was around foster care. As many of you have heard or have experienced, it's a very difficult process to become a foster parent. The paperwork is very intense, the background checks. It's a very difficult and long process. And our youth and our children in San Francisco often have to be shipped out of San Francisco because of the delay and all of the challenges that they're finding. And They're separated from their brothers and sisters often, and it's just a very traumatic experience for everyone involved. And so the solution here, again, built in 16 weeks, was to streamline this whole process. So they went from a fully paper process where we had to do on-site visits, all of this work, to a 95% automated solution. And that's saving them 40% in time that they're now using to recruit more families to be part of the program. And again, this was done in 16 weeks. They worked closely with our human services agency. When the CEO, this is a young woman in her 20s, was thinking about this program, she wasn't sure she wanted to participate. I had to call her up and say, you really should consider this. This is a great program. She's like 16 weeks, not getting paid, and then another year maybe. This is really tough for a startup. She decided to go forward, and she now has 18 contracts in the state of California, and LA County, I think she's got 60% of Californians covered in literally less than a year. So I think it speaks to, if you're building a product that serves a real need, and you're solving a pain that government agencies really have, we'll find a way to work with you. And that's what they did. They solved a real need that they had. Another example is with a company called Data, and I worked with San Leandro's Rec and Park Department, Rec and Human Services Department, interesting. And so they didn't have a good understanding of the utilization of their services. So they have dozens and dozens of classes and resources that they provide, both in person, their park facilities, et cetera, and they have no idea how many people are using it. They can do surveys, but it's not a very good measure. And so for them, it's hard to really understand, are we being effective? Are we deploying our resources appropriately? Should we be spending somewhere else? And so they worked with this company who built a ton of data up that allowed them to visualize how much utilization of the park is happening on a daily basis, how many people are attending their classes, and so they have a tremendous amount of insight. And the great thing is San Francisco has the same need. Our park director doesn't know how many people are using our parks. And it's hard to defend when we go for a ballot measure or ask for some capital expenditure. He can't really speak to how much demand or need there is. And so this is a solution that we're likely to look at and try to utilize as well.